Before we get started, please go over to Amazon.com and grab a copy of my book, Education and Justice. If you have an African-American son in public school, you need this book because I teach you the many ways that public schools mistreat African-American boys and what you can do to help your son. So go over there and get your copy immediately. Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well and thank you for tuning in to this video. So let's get into this. Reportedly, the rapper Snoop Dogg performed at a Trump inauguration event recently. And the rapper Nelly is allegedly scheduled to perform at another one of Trump's inauguration events, alongside country singer Jason Aldean, whose song, Try That in a Small Town, drew much heat for its racial overtones. Disappointing, right? Yes, but I can't say I'm surprised. This reminds me of Ray Charles performing at the RNC some years ago and how much flack he caught for doing it. This, though, again, is different because this incoming Trump administration has clearly already began implementing an extremely anti-Black agenda called Project 2025. If you watch any of my previous videos about Project 2025, you already know Trump, Steve Bannon, MAGA, the GOP, and so on have been targeting rappers and young Black men for years to implement such an agenda. And here's why. Because they know that peeling off even a small percentage of young Black voters could keep them in power. And that's what this is about, keeping power. Steve Bannon has been very open about this strategy. He once said MAGA could dominate for decades if they get enough young Black men to vote for them. And that's where these rappers come in. Trump's team knows that rappers have a huge influence on young Black men. They know that when someone like Nelly or Kanye West or the other rappers, if they associate with Trump, it sends a signal. It says Trump isn't so bad, Trump is normal, look, even the rappers like him. But what's the real agenda here? It's not just about normalizing Trump. It's certainly not about unity between Black and white. It's not about helping Black men get tangibles, real tangibles. No, it's about preserving white male dominance and maintaining Black oppression. They call that Make America Great Again. Let me break this down even further. For over a decade, MAGA has been waging war on matters critical to the Black community. For example, DEI programs, wokeness, critical race theory, certain civil rights protections. They've also gone after and has basically gotten rid of affirmative action. They've gutted the Voting Rights Act and are trying to, again, dismantle housing policies that help Blacks. Man, they have even set their sights on the Department of Education, although it will disproportionately harm Black kids. They also want to dismantle or weaken the Environmental Protection Agency. Again, something that will disproportionately harm Black Americans. Just think about Flint, Michigan. This is not random. They know that dismantling these systems will hurt Black people the most. And without these protections, where would Black folks be? Let me give you an example. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, which is probably the most important civil rights law passed, was designed to stop voter suppression. Before this law, Black people were systematically denied the right to vote through such things as literacy tests, poll taxes, and outright violence. Then in 2013, the Supreme Court gutted a key part of the Voting Rights Act after Obama had been reelected. And you know what happened next? If not, let me tell you. States like Georgia, my home state here, Texas, and Florida, passed laws that made it much harder for blacks to vote. Now, against all of that backdrop, in that context, imagine what's going to happen now that Trump and MAGA in a couple of days will have full control of the government. They'll roll back even more protections. They've already shown us their hand. They've already showed us their playbook. It's called Project 2025. And this is where the rappers come in. Trump's team knows that young black men are frustrated with politics. They are frustrated with the Democratic Party. They feel ignored and taken advantage of. MAGA exploits this frustration and offer these young black men false promises and empty symbolism. They use rappers as the bridge to reach these disillusioned black voters. But here's my question for these rappers. Why are you helping white supremacists stay in power? Explain how that benefits you, your families, and your communities. What tangibles are you getting for that? Real tangibles. Because let's be real, Trump's policies haven't been helping black people. No. Sure, you rappers may get something out of it personally. For example, you might get tax breaks, tax benefits. Maybe you'll get access to Trump's network or certain business opportunities or just curry favor with him. But what about the greater community? What about the people who made you rich? Where are the policies that help black communities thrive? Is Trump promising you that? Where are the investments in education, housing, healthcare for people who look just like you? Because let's keep it a buck. Trump's policies, again, have not been helping the black community. Let's take a look at Trump's record, briefly. So he signed the First Step Act. He pushed opportunity zones. He did some HBCU funding. But those initiatives were small compared to the damage he's done and will do to the black community. Regarding the First Step Act, that was a bipartisan law that was in motion before Trump got into office. In fact, he had to be convinced to sign it, reportedly. And his Attorney General, Bill Barr, at that time, and the GOP undermined the First Step Act. Now Trump really wants to do something to harm the black community by implementing stop and frisk. What about the opportunity zones? These zones didn't uplift black communities as they promised. They mostly benefited wealthy white investors who built luxury apartments and office buildings. How did that help the black community? And regarding HBCU funding, yes, Trump signed off on some funding. But Congresswoman Alma Adams of Greensboro, North Carolina, and other black leaders, they drove that effort. And let's not forget, Biden has delivered billions in HBCU funding. And Trump opposed, called it VOW, student loan forgiveness. Now let's talk about some of the even racist things that Trump has done personally. He has never apologized for calling for the execution of the Central Park Five in a full-page article in the New York Times, although DNA evidence cleared those young men. He pushed the birtherism slander against Obama. He reportedly referred to African nations as blank hole nations. He refused, remember this, to denounce white supremacists, infamously saying there were very fine people on both sides after that disastrous Charlottesville rally. He told white militias to stand down and stand by. He allegedly pushed housing discrimination policies in the 70s by refusing to rent to black tenants. until the federal government sued him. And while he's bragging about a few initiatives, even claiming to be the best president black people ever had, believe it or not, his administration was actively dismantling civil rights protections behind the scenes. They rolled back all kinds of civil rights rules designed to prevent housing discrimination. They attacked anti-discrimination policies in education. They supported efforts to suppress black votes through racial gerrymandering and other restrictive voting laws. So let me ask again. I want to ask the rappers again. Why are you helping Trump and MAGA against that record? Why? Don't you understand the harm that Trump and MAGA has caused and will cause over the next 4 years? Or is this all about the bag? Because let's be honest, when you align with someone like Trump, you're not just endorsing his presidency. You're endorsing him and his policies. You're endorsing everything he stands for and everything that he's about to do. And what he stands for, again, and I can't say it enough, is anti-blackness. But it doesn't stop with the rappers. The disinformation these rappers help spread is amplified by the tech bros, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and others. Musk owns X.com, formerly Twitter, and it has become a breeding ground for far-right propaganda. Hate speech has surged on X.com under Musk's leadership. And he has been openly friendly with far-right figures and engaging with disinformation peddlers and reinstating accounts that were banned because of racism and extremism. Now, TikTok is on the selling block. Imagine if Musk got it. I mean, TikTok is already a powerful tool for influencing young black people. Just imagine if Musk controlled that platform. What kind of messages do you think will dominate that platform? And Mark Zuckerberg is no better, especially now. His platforms, Facebook and Instagram, are already notorious for spreading MAGA propaganda. During the 2016 and 2020 elections, Facebook was flooded with fake news targeting black voters. And now Zuckerberg is rolling out Threads, another platform. But do you think it will be free from this kind of disinformation and manipulation? Of course not. Especially now that Trump is being reelected. Zuckerberg has fired his fact checkers, and he announced recently that he stopped his DEI efforts. These tech bros are making it much easier for MAGA to spread disinformation. And the sad part is some of our own people, rappers, YouTube influencers, and everyday people are helping spread these lies to our people. This makes me think about the young men I knew when I was in college in the 80s. We had a sense of purpose. We were about empowering our communities. For example, I worked on Jesse Jackson's 1984 presidential campaign. I also worked to help stop apartheid in South Africa, which is the home of Elon Musk. I helped register people to vote. We understood the stakes as young people. Today, I see too many entertainers and these influencers, some I call pro-black imposters, who don't get it or who get it but don't care. They are tearing down the civil rights movement and its leaders. They're pushing ideas like vote the couch instead of showing up at the polls and making your voices heard. It reminds me of Judas selling out Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Now compare this to the entertainers, the athletes, the comedians, and so forth of the 60s. Back then, artists like Harry Belafonte and Nina Simone and Sidney Poitier and Dick Gregory and others stood shoulder to shoulder with civil rights leaders. Those entertainers use their platforms to fight oppression, not enable it. What happened to that spirit? Where are those types of entertainers and athletes? And of course, there are a few, and I'm not broad brushing all of them. But we need more artists, black artists, who uplift the community, not betray it. We need real, strong black leaders who challenge white supremacy, not help it stay in power. So here are my final thoughts. To Nelly and other rappers aligning with Trump, just ask yourselves, what legacy are you leaving behind? What will the history books say about you? How will your actions impact your community and your family 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now? Just ask yourself that. MAGA's strategy is deliberate. They are using every tool they have, including social media platforms, even our own people, to keep us divided and oppressed. And we got to call it out, no matter the risk. We have to stay informed. We have to stay on top of things. And most importantly, never forget, we have to stay woke.